Hello everybody. Something a bit different for today's lab time. So with Palo Alto and indeed all next-gen firewalls, there is a lot of features that people just switch on and just switch them on, leave them at their defaults, and then are surprised when they still get an attack or something happens. So what I wanted to do was actually start looking not just at the zone protection, which is what we're going to look at today, but to start looking through all of the features, take a real deep dive, and using, as you can see, using Kali to try and work our way through the device and see if we can see how to not only block attacks or alert to attacks, but also how to know that the protections we've got in place are working. So today we're going to look at zone protection, and the two sort of main things that are just people just tick and put on, which is the anti-spoofing and the host sweep. So if we want to, for people doing recon, so somebody's got into your environment, or somebody's got a malicious inside actor, and they're going to now try and do a host sweep through the firewall, and they're going to look for hosts on the other side, do some reconnaissance on the other side. Reconnaissance is obviously the first part of any attack chain, and so we need to make sure that it's cut off as quickly as possible, or at least hampered as much as possible. And there's several ways to do this. Okay, so we're going to start off by having a look at the zone protection profiles and just quickly refresh our memories as to what they do. Okay, so the zone protection profiles are found under network zone protection, rather conveniently already selected. And then, so we're going to concentrate on the fact that our Kali Linux box lives on the DMZ zone, and everything else is on the internet zone. So we're going to look at our DMZ, and we've got our flood protections there, SYN, UDP, ICMP. We're not going to look at those today. We're going to look at those another day. And then we've got our reconnaissance protection, which is what we're going to be concentrating on. And I'm just going to return this now to its default states. Well, actually, its default states are, we'll put it to alert, and alert. Okay, the default threshold is 100, and I believe the interval is 10. Okay, I'll just check on our LAMPG one just to make sure. Yeah. Okay, right, so whilst that's pushing, we'll just go through it again quickly. So we have our flood protections, our reconnaissance protections, which is the TCP port scans, the host sweep and UDP port scans, and then we've got source address exclusion, because of course when you set this up, you are still going to be in an environment where you're going to need to test it and put in rules in or anything like that across firewalls to allow the testing devices to get through. Could obviously be tedious, but you can add an exclusion here, then that excludes that testing host from these protections. So the packet-based protection is sort of, it is what it says it is around the packet base. So you've got spoofed IP address, which is enabled by default, strict IP address check, and fragmented traffic. And then you have your IP options underneath, and a lot of those can be used, such as record route and so on, can all be used in order to enumerate or look through a network and look for hosts to attack. And TCP drop, so we have the options that we've got there, and then the reject non-TCP, non-SYN TCP, which is global, which is meaning you use the setting for the entire firewall or specifically for this zone protection profile. And then you've got the ICMP drop, IPv6 drop, and ICMP IPv6 drop. Protocol protections. So with protocol protections, we have these, which are IPv4 and IPv6. Those can't be either included or excluded. They are included. So this exclude list is allowing all protocols. So all protocols can get through. If we change this to an include list, even though we can't actually alter these, that creates an implicit deny for all non-listed protocols, as it says there. So if we were to just put include list, then all protocols outside of IPv4 and IPv6 would then be blocked unless we specifically allowed them through here. That really granularly controlling the traffic through the firewall. The SGT protection is for SGT tags, Cisco SGT, and then we've got the later layer 3 and layer 4 header inspection, which we'll go into at another time. Okay, so now we're going to look at a couple of things we're going to look at. So the host sweeping is, we're going to use fping, and we're going to use fping to go through the network and look for live hosts. So we're going to do that now. And as you can see, it's already written out. And then we can just tab our way through that. No, we can't. 192.168.0.0/24. Nice, eh? Okay, so what I'm going to do now, so this is literally going through and it's finding the live hosts on the other side. And so we can see the list is actually quite long. So in reality, with our zone protection then set at just normal thresholds, what we actually find is that, to be fair, I can actually go through now and then I could say nmap 192.168.0.4, for instance. I could do a quick nmap because I found that host is up. Okay, so what we're looking to do is we're looking to reduce that as much as we possibly can, and the way to do that, I've discovered through multiple testing, is mainly looking at the event side of things, and what we've got to do. And to understand that, we have to look a little bit deeper into what the zone protection profile is actually doing. So if we switch to our firewall, so for the flood protections is pretty much across the whole firewall. It's all source IPs and everything. What the reconnaissance protection is doing is that's looking from a specific host as it's coming into that zone or that lives in that zone. So if we move this down now to, say, 25, because we don't want to bore everybody with the time, we move that down now to 25 and then push that and try it. That's looking for 25 events within that time frame from this host. Okay, so we can increase the time, and then by decreasing the amount of events, it makes it more sensitive. Okay, I'll just let that push. Okay, that's now committed. So now what we should see is in here, in our threat log, we should see from 8.14, we should see alerts now, a lot more alerts appearing due to this scan that we're running. And we can see the alerts are starting to pick up there from my IP, which is this one, .3. Again, we can also, as well, if we look as well, we can also see on the traffic, we can see the traffic coming through. So, of course, alerts are all very well and good, but what we need to do is we need to block that traffic. So we're going to go to the network. That's also a little bit sort of point. Alerts are okay, but they're a bit pointless. Suppose you've got your log forwarding, so it could go to a sim log. But we want to block that. So we are going to, we can either block it or we can block by IP. So if we block, that will simply block those attempts from that host. If we block by IP, however, and we track the IP by source, because we can either track by source or source and destination, if we track by source and then we create a duration in there of 15 seconds, that is going to then block that for the 15 seconds. So that IP will be blocked for 15 seconds to go pretty much anywhere. So if we then increase this, and then we want to decrease this to 15 events. OK, and then commit that. And what we're basically saying there is we are saying that we want to block the IP for 15 seconds if within a 20-second interval we get 15 events from this host. What we should see then, as a result of that, is we should see that this list actually becomes a lot shorter, a lot smaller, and we also see that we've then got some logs for the threat entries. Okay, so that's actually committed now, so what we're going to do is we're going to run our command again. We see immediately that's been cut down, and that has been blocked for that period of time, 15 seconds. So now we're seeing less and less, and we're exposing less and less of our network. And if we go over to our threat logs, we can see in our threat logs that we have block IP for that, and it actually caught it on the when it was scanning for 0.15. See if there's any more logs in there. There's no more logs in there. And then we have the traffic. We see the ping traffic coming off of it. It's managed to see. Okay, but our results are we've got a lot less. Now if we wanted to then just move that further, again you can put that down to 10 events. Okay, and we'll commit that again and just run that test just one more time just to show how it decreases. Always assuming it does, of course. Okay, so that's committed successfully. So we switch back to our Kali box, run the command again, and we get notably less responses and less values coming back. Run it again, and as we run it again, obviously it's now blocked. So we will now see that we don't get any joy at all, and then so your attacker then becomes frustrated as they're trying to enumerate whatever's in the next in the next network or in any other network that they can get to. So that's the zone protection profile. Remember that zone protection profiles are they are the first evaluation as something hits the firewall. So, and it's ingress into the firewall itself. So anything that's coming from the DMZ zone, so any hosts that live on the DMZ zone as they are trying to communicate across the firewall to somewhere else, that is where that's going to be applied, because that's the direction it travels in. So the next thing we're going to look at is the anti-spoofing. Anti-spoofing is very much, it's something that people put on by default. I absolutely agree with it. There is an inherent issue with getting back the replies if you're on another network, if you're across a layer 3 boundary, because you're never going to see that reply. You would have to do MAC poisoning and be on the same segment to get that back. Okay, and I'm sure there's plenty of people that are into offensive security and everything like this. So I'm really sort of starting back on that journey again now, who would probably be able to tell me, oh, you can do it a million ways. And of course, if anybody does know how to do it, absolutely leave a comment and we'll discuss it. This whole channel is about an open discussion about actually securing networks using Palo Alto Networks devices, rather than me trying to claim that I'm some kind of guru or person of authority. So anti-spoofing is on by default. Just cleared that for some reason, don't absolutely know why. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up a TCP dump, which we've got there, and we'll use that host as well. Okay, so now we've got our TCP dump running. We're just going to pop our TCP dump to one side, and we're going to set off our H ping to spoof. Okay, so let me see if I can get the syntax right. Source. We're going to do it on port 80, and we're going to use the 192.168.0.4 as our target. It needs sudo. Okay, so now we can see that we can see from our TCP dump here that we've got that running. And then if we go back to our firewall and we look at our threat logs, you can see there's nothing, there's no threats being logged or anything like that. And also if we go to our traffic, we see that there's no traffic being logged for it either. We don't see this traffic at all, even though we know that it is going across there. See? Okay, so what's going on? How do we work out where that is? Well, for this we have to drop down to the Palo Alto command line, where we can use the global counters to look and see what's actually happening. So I'll do that now. Okay, so we're going to look at, you don't know if you're familiar with this command or not. Global. Okay, so this is going to show you all the global counters that are on the device, on the box. Okay, so these are all the global counters. Well, there's a flow, what type of thing it is it NAT, is it app ID? We've got all sorts of counters here for things like applications, so number of packets processed by application identification, using LSCAN. We've got packets received, packets dropped, exceeded MTU but DF bit present, exceeded MTU. Okay, the one that we are looking for specifically in here though is this one, which is the flow DOS IP spoof, which you can see the counter at the minute is at 1055. So because we know that attack is ongoing, we could simply just do that again and look at IP spoof, and it's now 1098. Or we can match on that and just keep checking on that flow, and then we can see that that's actually being dropped on IP spoofing, because we know that's the case at the minute. And we can as well, we can do a show counter global filter delta yes, and we can match on that flow again, sorry, on that counter again, and then we can see everything since the last time we checked that counter. So it will go down. The faster we do it, it will go down. Whereas if we leave it for a while and let it build up, so this is now since the last time we checked the counter, and we do it again, we can see now we've got 7. So the interesting part about this is the fact that even though we can see that we know the attack's happening because we instigated the attack, we can see it's still going on now. We know that the counter is increasing, but if we drop over to the firewall, we can see that there is no traffic. There is no traffic from any of these IPs going to 04, which of course it would go across the firewall. And that is because it's been dropped before it even gets to any firewall stage. So it can't get past the zone protection profile. And that's the power of zone protection profile, specifically within Palo Alto networks, is the fact that they're protecting you before the traffic even hits it. Okay, so just to end off the video, please like and subscribe if you do like the video. Obviously, tell me if you don't. What I would tend to suggest is if these settings here, they're going to be very specific to your organization. It's going to be too sensitive. It's going to be too depending on what goes on in the network itself. If you have a lot of engineers or if you have people that are doing a lot of testing and a lot of troubleshooting and things like that, that may potentially be too sensitive, and that might start blocking legitimate traffic. However, what I'd be tempted to do, rather than just leaving it to chance, is there's no reason why you couldn't drop these down to, say, half, because scans are slightly different. Okay. And then I would suggest the block IP again, and then track by source, and then 15, which again, so block IP, track by source 15, block IP, track by source 15. Okay, they're all set the same. And once you've committed that, then you have a fairly stable sound configuration that is really going to start to protect your network. I say the whole thing about this now and going deeper and deeper into the different protections is the fact that, unfortunately, unlike URL filtering, which is very obvious, it's very straight out. It's, if you say block everything within hacking and you try to get to a Kali Linux site, you're not going to do it. So that's very obvious and very in your face. But what we need to do is we need to understand as engineers, in my opinion anyway, we need to understand how, not only how we actually block stuff, but how we know and how we can confirm that that is being blocked, so that we know that protections we're putting in place are working. The last thing you want to be doing is told by somebody else at a meeting, a mop-up meeting from a breach or something like that, the reason your protection didn't catch it. Okay? So just the last thing we're going to do is, once that's committed, we're just going to quickly pop back to the Kali box, and we're going to try and run a mmap against that address and just see if that mmap gets through with the TCP scan. Okay, so popping back in and do an mmap, auto-complete that, and we'll just see. We can see now we're not getting any results back, and looking on our firewall, we can see now that if we look in the logs, we've got a TCP port scan that is being blocked, and then that's blocking the IP. So effectively what we've done there is we have effectively said, okay, we are now blocking that. And just as a quick, just really quickly, because it'll only take a second to do it, if I go in here and I add a source address exclusion here, so I've got my Kali box, which, because it's my network, I happen to know is on 66.3. Okay, so I've added that in there, and I'll quickly commit that, and I'll pause the video so that you don't have to sit and watch that. Okay, so that's now committed. Back to our Kali box, and we can mmap again our target host. So effectively what we're saying is, again, that we've got reconnaissance protection. This is all protected now, so anybody other than the exclusion that we've put in, because we know for a fact this is our testing device, is going to get blocked, but this is going to be allowed. Okay, so I say please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. We're going to go through all the zone protection profiles, because these are the first things that get hit, and then we're going to try and decode all parts and actually show how we can secure our networks, rather than a lot of the other videos which are just, oh, this is how you set it up, and then but okay, it's set up, but does it work? Okay, so see you in the next one.